I'm Melissa.
And I'm Lee, and we are busy mums, company founders, and all-round early learning nerds. Welcome to our podcast, Growing Little Humans.
Kids aren't born with a user manual, so each week we'll try and cover many topics that you guys encounter and worry about each and every day while you're raising your little humans.
Today we are so excited to have with us Dr. Tovah Klein, who holds a doctorate in clinical psychology from Duke University. She completed a clinical fellowship at Boston Children's Hospital, Harvard University, and was a visiting research scholar at UCLA. With over 3 decades of experience working with families, Dr. Klein has been dubbed the Toddler Whisperer by Good Morning America. Her research focuses on parenting influences and challenges, including work-life balance, play and emotional development, parents' effective impact on children's learning, and child trauma. Dr. Klein is the author of 2 acclaimed books, How Toddlers Thrive and Raising Resilience, How to Help Our Children Thrive in Times of Uncertainty. So hi, Dr. Klein. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're very blessed to have you with us.
I'm excited to be here.
So let's just jump right in and we'll get started. So can you please explain what resilience means in the context of child development?
Sure. So I really think about resilience as kind of an encompassing category, meaning the ability to adapt, to adjust, to be flexible. And these are the qualities that children need to develop over time in order to handle whatever obstacles or hurdles or adversities come their way. So it's this adaptability and ability to adjust that we call resilience.
So the more resilience that children can develop, the more adaptability they have, and that's why it's really important for us to try and build that resilience in our children from an early age.
Yeah, it's naturally developing in the parent-child relationship, and we'll talk about how that is. But it's really this dynamic. It's not a trait or a dose, which is often the misunderstanding. People think like my child has it or doesn't, and that's not the case. Which I say in a hopeful way because we can always help our children become more resilient. Sometimes they'll handle hardship or challenge as well, and sometimes they won't. That doesn't mean they're not resilient.
Right.
The question is, how can we help them face hard things, know that they're not alone in it, and then learn to process it and get through it? And they do that with the parent by their side, or the caregiver or guardian.
Yes, it seemed from reading parts of your book, it really talks about that being a partnership, doesn't it? So much of the parents are really supporting that building the resilience. So what age do children start to develop resilience?
Yeah, I mean, you see it developing gradually over time, but it really starts with that first relationship with their primary caregivers, usually parents, not always, but usually parents. And it's in that back and forth, even with an infant, that the parent is comforting and caring for the baby. And then the toddler who starts to move out in the world, and the parent says, I'll still be here for you. Don't worry. You can go try things. That you're beginning this foundation, which is, what we call a secure relationship or building trust. The infant and then the baby, and then the child learn to trust that somebody is there for me, even when I mess up, even when I'm angry, even when I don't listen. And in that foundation, which is trust in this primary person, their attachment figure, gets internalized in the child, and it becomes trust in themselves. And that's what allows them to say, even when things are hard, I can figure out a way to handle this. And most importantly, I'm not alone. I have somebody there to go to. I call it the anchor in the book. Somebody who's anchoring me so that I don't have to feel like I'm facing these challenges by myself.
There's always a safe harbor. There's always, the ability to come home, essentially, I guess.
Exactly.
Somebody's got my back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I have this safe place. That safe place will be there no matter what happens.
Amazing, isn't it? And so when we talk about resilience, what are the key factors that contribute to a child's ability to bounce back from those challenges and that adversity that you were talking about?
Yeah, so you can think of, the challenges and adversities. I think of them on like a continuum, right?
Mm.
There's the little ones that happen every single day that don't feel so little to the child, depending on their age. But the red shoes that they wanted to wear, they left at grandma's and they don't have them today.
Yeah.
Or, you cut their sandwich wrong if they're little. Um, and then their friend wouldn't play with them. And then as they get older, you take them to school and their teacher's not there and there's somebody filling in. Like each of these things are, let's call them a hardship, or they're not getting the attention that they desire because you're attending to a sibling of theirs or you're making dinner or something. All of those feel hard to them. And then there's bigger challenges in life. Like they're trying to figure out how to build that tower, stack those blocks. And then there's what I call when bad things happen. There's family tensions, there's loss, there's moving. So it's all a continuum of big, medium, and that, I mean, small, medium, and then bigger, challenges or
Challenges.
adversities. So when you think of the challenges every single day, this is when the parent is helping the child build that ability to bounce back. And I want to say that bouncing back, I use that term too, but it really is a process. It's not like, oh, something didn't go my way, now I'm fine. It's how do we help them get through that disappointment, the frustration, the anger? And that takes, a number of factors. One is this really sound relationship with a parent, not a perfect relationship by any means, but
I'm glad to hear that, Dr. Klein, because
Yeah.
we're all far from perfect, aren't we?
I
And
don't
so
think.
I think that's reassuring actually for parents to know that it doesn't have you don't
Mhm.
have to be perfect all the time as a parent.
yeah, no, and just to sidetrack for a minute, I write about this in the book. Not only is know that nobody's perfect. It's an impossible standard. If
Mhm.
everybody listening could just say, I'm going to shed that standard. But it wouldn't be good for the child. Let's just say there was such a thing as sort of a robotic perfection. It would have to be emotionless if you think about it,
Yeah.
because it's in our emotions that we sort of have our disconnects from our children. But even if we did, this pediatrician in the 1950s and he was a pediatrician and a psychoanalyst, D.W. Winnicott, and he wrote about perfection. He was talking to mothers at the time, but he said, there's no such thing as perfection. And if there was, what would be dangerous about it is the model for children would be
Mm.
perfection. And then they would go out in the world and they would find out that that's not the case. And they
Mm.
wouldn't be able to handle the challenges or the
Yeah. And the
injustices
imperfection. Yeah.
and the imperfection. So actually, the fact that we are imperfect is truly, and I say this with like love and affection, it's truly what helps children see my parents not going to always get this right. Sometimes we're going to be at odds. The important thing is we're going to come back together. My mommy or my daddy's going to come back to me and say, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have yelled like that. I shouldn't have handled it like that. And I still love you. And it's the reconnection that strengthens the child to know I have this anchor. They're always there for
Mm.
me.
Yeah.
But it does something equally important, which is it says to the child, you're not going to always be perfect either. And that's
That's
okay.
okay.
That's okay. Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
amazing.
So it's going for the good enough parenting, not the perfect, because then you're just beating yourself up all the time for being human. So I think your question was what are the factors? The first really important factor is having this base that the child knows they're going to be okay. They're not going to be alone, even when things are really rough. And I don't know, do you want me to go through the pillars of the book?
That'd be
Yeah, that'd be
great. Yeah.
great. So I guess kind of my next
Mm.
question revolved around like what role do parents play and how can
Mhm.
parents help? What strategies can they utilize to build resilience in their children?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say about building resilience is all of us as parents, I'm a parent of three, um, is that we have to recognize that taking away pain points or bad things from children actually hinders them. It's our job not to make children happy, believe it or not. Like we go into being a parent, we think that's our job, but it's really to help them through the rough spots, whether that's, again, little or big rough spots. And when we do that, when we say to them, yeah, that's really disappointing that your friend wouldn't play with you today. I bet that didn't feel good. Right? We help them understand that sometimes feelings are hard, sometimes
Yeah.
friends don't play, sometimes things don't go their way. And tomorrow's a new day. All of those moments help a child build some resilience because what they learn to do is understand their emotions. These are hard emotions for children: anger, sadness, frustration, fear, the negative emotions.
And I think too that they're normal, Dr.
Mm.
Klein, isn't it? That it's normal to feel those emotions.
It's totally normal. And that's what children don't know,
Yeah.
young children. But children grapple with this their whole life, right? Am I allowed to be angry? What if my parent finds out that I'm mad at them? I didn't like that they said no cookies or that we couldn't go outside, whatever it was, limits, right? That limits make children upset. Limits make adults upset, by the way, too. None of us like no.
Very true.
Um, so the more we help children know these emotions are part of being a human. These emotions are part of being a kid. Sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're sad, sometimes you're angry, sometimes you're, proud. All of those are part of being a person. And that the parent needs to message, I can handle this. You
Yeah.
can be mad at me that we're not doing, this thing that you want to do right now. I'm going to go make dinner and, I'm here if you need me. So it says to them, those feelings are not going to push me away. And that's a really important role that parents play. But one of the issues with that is that parents have to really come to terms with their own views of, can I really allow my child to be angry? And what does it feel like when my
Mm.
child's mad at me? Um, and that's the whole part of my book that I call the you factor,
Mm.
YOU, which is reflecting for the parent on who they are and what they bring to being a parent.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I read in your book, Dr. Klein, that I think we all as parents try to keep in our minds all the time is that all parents want to do is, raise the best child they can, and they want the best for their children. So, but I think we also have to recognize that as parents, doing the best for your child doesn't always mean just trying to make them happy. It actually, you're needing to teach resilience so that they have those tools in their tool belt as they go out as adults into the world, and they know how to deal with adversity, they know how to deal with disappointment. So resilience is just so important in an adult's world as well, isn't it?
Absolutely, because that child starts off young, grows into middle childhood, becomes a teenager, and then becomes an adult.
Mm-hmm.
So, absolutely, this base that we give them in this loving, let's call it somewhat flawed care of
Yes.
love, is the base that says to them, things are going to go awry. It's not going to always feel good. And I trust that you can handle it because they'll have had so much experience with the parent there to say, yeah, that didn't feel good,
Yeah.
commiserating with them, being there for them, that in time they really do get this sense of I can handle life.
And so, Dr. Klein, Melissa and I, as you know, we are in the early learning space. So we have the Wishing Tree Early Learning Centres. And so, from that perspective, how does play contribute to building resilience? And are there any specific types of play or activities that are especially beneficial for building resilience?
Yeah, it's a great question. Play is, as you know, because you're running, a program and you're in this area, play is the child's world. And so when I started studying play years ago, really what drew me to it was one, I've spent 30 years now running a program for toddlers, 1.5 to 3.5 year olds, and watching them play every day. And you can go to a playground and watch children play. it begs the question, why is that their world? And so much of what children do in play is learn to manage their emotions, right? If you're overly frustrated, you're not going to be able to stay involved in play, which is fine. You might back off, you might, throw your puzzle down and
Yeah.
walk away because it's too frustrating and then come back another time. But if you as they learn to manage those emotions, the anger or frustration when a friend is not going along with your game plan, you're trying to build a tower and the friend wants to do it differently. All of that is managing emotions. And in the frustrations of play, children learn to cooperate. They learn to adapt. Oh, I'm trying to build my magnet tiles this way and it's not working. What else can I do? That's adjusting and adapting. That's learning to be flexible, right? So all of that kind of open-ended play that doesn't have a rule or an ending, right? We're not saying draw within these lines, but the child comes up with the ideas and the child tries to enact them. It gives them trust in themselves. It gives them trust in their abilities. And when they get through really hard parts of play, whether it's because they're negotiating with peers or, or figuring out how to solve a puzzle, all of that is giving them strength and confidence. And it's also giving them lots of, let's call them sticky points of either conflict with peers or just within themselves. How do I do this? How do I figure out, how to create what I want to create? And so the more open-ended play is where they really gain these skills.
Yeah. And what do you think is going to be the biggest challenges for parents and caregivers moving forward with trying to raise resilient children?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges is ourselves. Like
Yeah.
we as a parent get in the way of our own children, not because we mean to. The more we're able to look at ourselves and become aware of ourselves, the better able we are to step back, watch our children, and let them stumble and fall. And with the message of, I'm here if you need me, but we don't run in so quickly. We don't call the parent because their friend wouldn't play with them at school today. We say to
Yeah.
our child, yeah, that is a bummer. That
Yeah.
is disappointing. Maybe you want to try tomorrow or maybe not. And we don't get mad at our child who says, I don't like that friend anymore. But we appreciate that they'll probably go back to school tomorrow and play with that.
Play with
Yes.
them. Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of self-introspection that takes place. And those are the questions in my book. I call them reflective questions. How do I feel when my child is upset? How did people treat me when I was upset as a child? Did
Yeah.
someone humiliate me? Did someone yell at me? So all of that awareness, and I always say you have to kind of shed your own shame, but also sometimes we discover something about ourselves and we go, oh no, that is me.
Yeah.
I am that person always trying to make my kids happy.
I did read that in your book as well about the sibling rivalry as well. Don't get involved in your children if fighting and disagreeing. They're learning all these skills, so just let them, sort it
Yeah.
out themselves. And I was thinking, oh, that's me. I'm always jumping in and trying to, sort that situation out. So
Back off. You'll be much better off.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, as parents, we just need to remember every step of the way that we're actually through them going through these, little hurdles and adversities, that we really are building their resilience every day. And it's just an ongoing process, isn't it, Dr. Klein? And, this is a topic I think that we could literally talk about all day, but unfortunately we're almost out of time. So, are there any top tips you've got in closing, Dr. Klein?
I have a couple of top tips. One is I always say to parents, you've got to keep your humor, right?
Yes.
Children are a challenge. You've got to keep your humor. If you take a step back, whether it's from siblings or from your own child or with peers, and you listen rather than tell, children want to be heard. They want to be understood. And so when we listen, we actually give children a chance to blossom much more. And then, what we've already talked about is really be aware of how am I when my child is upset? Am I able to allow them to be upset even if I'm there comforting them? Or am I always trying to take away the negative? I think those are the three biggies.
Well,
They,
thank you so much, Dr. Klein. We've loved having you on today's episode, and there's so many more areas of resilience that we'd love to discuss with you. So I hope we can have you back again to talk about those another day.
Please, I'd be happy to.
Thank you
great.
so much.
Thank you.
And here come the legals. Our podcast is purely brought to you for educational and entertainment purposes. We are just two hectic mums, and we are certainly not licensed therapists.
This podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of licensed or qualified professionals. And if you do need some help, please seek out some professional advice.